Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. If this is your first time joining us, welcome to Two Sons Podcast. If this is your fourth, seventh, 10th, 11th, 32nd, 45th, or 51st time joining us, or coming back, or just scattling along with the Two Sons Podcast journey, welcome again. Everybody is welcome here. Please come on down and listen to an episode of Two Sons Podcast. We are back. Oh, what a wonga. If you guys cannot see on screen, that was just a Jabba the Hutt. Oh, there he is again, the big boy with Salacious Selena B. Crumb. If you don't know, that's what he sounds like. Judging by that Funko Pop, we can tell that, and my shirt, it says Star Wars on it. And if you can't tell, this is going to be another episode of Star Wars, specifically, probably one of the best cinematic episodes of Star Wars ever to grace our eyes. Ahsoka Episode 5.
That's right.
I'm calling it now and here, folks. This will be one of the best episodes of Two Sons Podcast to date, just because of how good this episode was. And I will put it in the title that everybody should shut this podcast off and go watch the episode if you haven't, because we will get into major spoilers, just like we do in every other episode. And we will be talking about the man, the myth. Well, actually, we'll be talking about two legends in this, possibly more, because this episode was extremely legendary. Sorry for that little rant and crazy introduction, but you know what? What did I tell you? What did I just say, Philip? What did I just say?
You said that this was going to be the best episode of Two Sons Podcast.
To be the best, you got to become the best. And how do we become the best?
By being the best.
Exactly. You're not going to be the best if you're not the best. So
right.
All you got to do is be the best, and then at the end of the day, you're the best.
Yeah, there are no impossibilities in life, just degrees of difficulty.
Exactly. Words of wisdom here from Two Sons Podcast. There's nothing you can't overcome if you already overcame it when you come with the overcoming.
That's right.
You know, did you think, climber A climbed Mount Everest higher than climber B? Nah, they're at the same point. Maybe one did it faster, but what did they have in the end? Just fatigue, and you don't want that in life.
I don't. I mean, me personally, I don't. So
exactly, it's like see me. I don't want to wake up and be like, it's another day. Like I don't want that. That's not what we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to be zombies up in here. Right? That's not what this podcast is. I mean, unless we do a Walking Dead episode, then I might come in I'm not gonna do my zombie impression, but I gotta say 8.5 out of 10. I have been called the zombie of Long Island. If you guys don't know, that is
he has not been called that ever in his life.
That is my street nickname. I'll just go to the local Domino's and they're like, zombie, and I'm like, it happens. Take a sip of water real quick. My mouth's getting really dry.
Everything that he just said is a complete lie.
There are no lies on Two Sons Podcast, all right? They could go look it up. Google, guys, all right? Google's free. If you guys Google my name, I guarantee that you'll find an article talking about the zombie of Long Island. And what will it have under it? This face right here, all right? The host, Two Sons Podcast. So, with that out of the way, how is everybody doing out there? How has your
it's Friday.
Yes, how has your Friday been? We are recording this on Friday, September 15th. How has your Friday, September 15th been, or how has the middle of September been treating you? Starting, we're kind of in the start of school here, so to all my fellow students out there and listeners, let us know how you're doing. What are you doing? You in college? You in high school? If so, what do you like? What major are you doing? For everybody else out there, kind of getting back into the swing of things. So, hopefully everything is going well for you guys. We will get into each other in a little bit, but, again, let us know how you guys are. We always love to hear your feedback. And especially since the next couple of episodes will consist of all Ahsoka. Definitely let us know your feedback on Ahsoka, because if you guys have not checked out the Two Sons Podcast Twitter recently, I have been blowing it up with this episode because I don't think I've ever tweeted this much in my life, and I don't really know how to use Twitter because I'm not super tech savvy, but like I've at least posted over 8 things for this episode already. So like,
I can confirm that he has.
Exactly. And like, if you guys want, like, go follow Two Sons Podcast, at Twitter. That's Sons with an O, not a UB, as we are two brothers. Yes, there we just get into let's get into how we're doing. How we doing, man, across from my face in the screen. Also known as the code.
Me?
Yes, sir, you are the only
Okay.
man across my face in the screen, unless I'm seeing things. I'm not.
Or the government's spying on us while we're recording.
Sorry if you guys have like anything, like I just flashed the screen with a flashlight, so I apologize.
Great. Now one of our viewers could be just having a freaking seizure on the floor.
Okay,
because
well, in the title, I will put like seizure warning, just in case, viewers.
Well, my dear brother, I am doing very good.
That's what I like to hear.
So, same old, to be honest. Work has been work. That's been pretty
It's
good. Can't really complain about that. School's been school. Can't really complain about that. A little bit of learning there, a little bit of homework there. You know how it is.
learning and homework.
And yeah, just taking it one day at a time as usual. And had the last 2 days off, so had some time to relax and just kind of recuperate. And yeah, been on a big Lego kick lately. So I'm sure we'll talk about that because we've been talking about Legos for not like the last 3 days straight.
Absolutely. Yes, I have. I still haven't, actually bought anything with that card that I told you about because I had to refund it like 3 times because of the whole thing. Yeah, so I got to find out the balance of it because I'm really hoping to purchase it.
Well, now I flip the script on you, my dear brother, and I ask you, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm a little annoyed today though, only because the kids at the daycare I work for are very picky in terms of what they eat. And I was nice, and I made them cookies today, right?
Now, I would say that kind of sounds like a personal problem, to be honest.
It does. It really does. And this kid, like took the cookie and he was like, "This is hard. I can't eat it." And I like it. The strength of Anakin Skywalker almost took over me, and the lights were already off in the classroom. All I needed to do was ignite it, and that's it. But I got a job to do.
Technically, by then he was Darth Vader.
I have a job to do, all right? So I cannot do anything about it. I also basically make your own tacos for lunch, right?
Guys, comment down below if you think that Joey should dress up as Anakin Skywalker for Halloween and go to work in an Anakin Skywalker costume.
I got the lightsaber. All I need is the robe, and that's it. I'm good and clear. Put it in this episode right now.
I'm gonna be completely honest. If there's not a picture of you in a classroom with these kids as Anakin Skywalker, it is a missed opportunity. Okay.
That's true. Expect something on the Two Sons Podcast Instagram come October. And one of my teachers was like, "Yeah, Mr. Joe, this was not a hit," and I'm like, I made the same thing last week. I just didn't wrap it in the tortilla this time. I let them make their own because I got complaints that it was too hard to eat. I don't know how a tortilla is too hard to eat. I cut it up for.
Well, it sounds like these kids are very stupid.
Oh, I don't think to that degree, but I think they're a little bit picky. I think we got some picky eaters there. But you know what? At the end of the day, what am I supposed to do? I can't mix things. I can't go in there and just chef it up. I can't even make like a cheeseburger, like even if I wanted to, because I can't really serve cheese. Like it's hard. They're just like chicken nuggets, fries, and pizza. I mean, hey, I'll give it to them every day, with fruit and vegetables on the side, of course, because you need a balanced diet. But I can't do that every day. Got to have some variety in our life.
That's right.
That brings me to my next segment. Well, actually, I didn't finish saying how it was. Overall, I'm well. I'm a little tired today, but I was up early like usual. Yeah, nothing else really going on. Like my brother was saying, I've been on a very big Lego kick lately, and I've been ordering some more stuff. I've been trying. I have a gift card from one of my old bosses that shout out to you, Greco. excuse me. I have a gift card from one of my old bosses that I am trying to use on Legos, and I was going back and forth deciding what I wanted. If you guys don't know, the ATT Walker is on sale at Walmart for I think like $110 opposed to 140, so it's a really good deal. If you're into that stuff, pick it up. The 332nd clone battle pack just came out, so definitely going to try to pick up a couple of those because if you guys don't know, I am building a Star Wars mock. So as of right now, I have an ATT Walker. I have a small Walker from one of the 501st battle packs. I have a small Walker from a 212th battle pack that was a while ago. I have a 501st speeder. I have two 501st cannons. I have a tank for the clones. I don't exactly know the name, and I believe it's called an AT-AT. Basically the Kashyyyk Walker that usually Commander Grease battalion or squad or whatever. I don't know what number he is. Uses. As of right now, I'm pretty sure that's what I have in terms of clones. I am trying to get a tank for the droid side because I do not have a lot on that side besides a spider droid, a droid troop carrier, two crab droids, and my super battle droids and B1 battle droids. So I am trying to get the tank.
Well,
So it
don't
will
you have
come
like
with
the
something.
big one like that like has like it's like it almost looks like a spider like it has like a big
Yeah,
like
yeah, the spider droid.
oh okay I didn't know if there was a different spider droid I didn't so that's why
No, I do. I did tell you that I didn't go today. I did tell you I wanted to go to that Lego store that's over here somewhere and see if he had like random droid things like a droid gunship or like I actually have a droid vulture like microfighter, which actually once I built the ATTE, it should be like the same. It should be like correct size, so I could actually put that in there, which would be pretty cool. So I do want to pick up a couple of different things so I can have a whole battle going on. I do want to pick up the gunship at some point, like I told you. But right now I'm working on the battle packs and trying to build up the droid side. So if you guys know anybody trying to get rid of some Star Wars Legos, hit us both up, especially any clones or droids. I am currently looking for those too, or just let me know some websites or something maybe that I can find besides Bricksite and like eBay and stuff because I've already been looking on those. Um, Other than that, I did want to talk about. I did see some gameplay for the Avatar World of Pandora game that's coming out. I'm not sure when it's coming out. I don't know if any of you knew there was a game coming out. But I remember when I was young and playing on the PSP, they had an Avatar game. I don't exactly remember what we did in the game, but it was fun because I know at some point you got to fly a Banshee, and I thought Banshees were one of the coolest things when I was a kid, especially when Avatar came out. And I believe you fought like the humans too as an Avatar. I don't know if you played as Jake Sully or just some random Avatar. But it was a PSP game. It was fun, and basically, a lot of people are calling this Horizon / Ark Survival like vibes. Like it pretty much looks very similar, but nonetheless, you get to be an Avatar, fly a Banshee, and pretty much just do what they do in Avatar. And I think those movies are pretty cool. So I'm excited for that because I saw a trailer for it the other day. Same thing with Spider-Man 2. Pretty sure it comes out in like 15 days, if not less. So look forward to that. I don't know if it's just available on PS5. I
yeah
hope
yeah those Spider-Man games are exclusive to PlayStation.
okay. Um, Apparently it's gonna be over 65 suits, which is crazy. I don't know if that's between Miles and Peter, even if that's still 30 plus suits each. Apparently Mysterio might be in it, but as of right now, I know Craven, Venom are in it. It looks badass. Definitely gonna want to pick it up at some point. Doo-doo-doo. Other than that, there's really not much in terms of movie news because nothing really has come out recently. I know that for some theaters, and please, anybody out there, let us know if you did. Apparently, this past episode 5 of Ahsoka, was available in some theaters. I don't know if it was just AMC or if it was AMC Regal Cinemark, but apparently it was available in some theaters, and we will get into obviously why it probably was put in theaters for a certain reason. Um, But also, really, we don't got anything crazy coming out until I believe Haunting in Venice is around the corner, and I think it's this weekend actually or next weekend. And then really, you're just gonna wait around till the October season and get the horror movies going. I know there's been some more promotions for Saw. I'm pretty sure they're releasing a Jigsaw head Saw bucket. I don't know who
Well,
it's
I kind of
exclusive
heard
to.
that the second Nun movie was kind of a flop.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of heard similar things where it was like, say for example, it was 2 hours, about an hour 20 of it was bad, and then 40 was all right.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't expect it to be. I don't know how the first Nun was, but even though it's in the Conjuring universe, I know the last Conjuring did not do well at all. I think it partly is because maybe they're trying to get it to not younger audiences, but staying on that PG-13 range. Like, excuse me, that is something I am concerned about with the Five Nights at Freddy's movie coming out. It's possible. Like I remember for Megan, that was PG-13, but a lot of people said it had good horror in it, and they might do away where they'll just show blood off screen for Five Nights at Freddy's. Who knows? But I think for the first movie it'll be good, and maybe they will release a rated R cut because I'm pretty sure they did that for Megan. So some hope there, but again, like I told you guys a couple of times in this podcast, that is probably my most anticipated movie for October. Um, Very excited to see it, and been on a big Five Nights at Freddy's kick lately. But yeah, there's really no other news I want to cover. As far as I know, Marvel writers did unionize, from what I believe. So that is good for them. I'm not exactly sure to what degree or agreement that they settled upon or are in the works for, but that means some strides are being made, at
Well,
least with
you
the
know what?
writers.
Speaking of Marvel, my dear brother,
Oh,
um, coming out soon. I think next month we have Loki season 2.
yes, it is October. I think October 10th or something, somewhere in the beginning. Very
So
cool.
that will be something to definitely look forward to.
That's going to be a pretty big Marvel project because honestly, Marvel has not been talked about for a little while, at least not on this podcast, or I really haven't seen anything on it. The most recent thing I actually saw in terms of superheroes news was Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. They released a teaser trailer, and then for the trailer, and then a couple of days later they released the trailer. I did see part of it. I actually haven't sat down and watched the whole trailer. Um, Colors look cool. Jason Momoa looks badass. It looks like him and his brother, the one I believe it was Norm or Norn. I don't know. That he technically arrested at the end of the last movie. Are kind of gonna team up against Black Manta. He looks badass. I think he will be probably one of the highlights of this film. Um, but it's gone through several reshoots. We really haven't gotten anything until just now. um, it looks cool, and I did like the first Aquaman, so I have hope for it.
You know what?
Do
I
I
have a
think?
small theory that I'm gonna predict that they are actually gonna kill off Amber Heard because I mean she was only seen in like one scene in the trailer. So I think they're gonna kill her off because if you notice, like obviously in the trailer it shows that he has a son or he has a child. So you assume like it's, his child and Amber Heard's child, right? Like put together. But
Uh,
you see that he's raising it by himself. I mean, like, so
mm,
I think they're gonna do something where maybe she dies and that's how they write her character off screen. So then it's just like him and the child left.
yeah, it's possible. I mean, logically, maybe that's how they're gonna introduce Black Manta really being a badass, and maybe he kills her off, and maybe he goes after Aquaman next. But seems like he's gonna be a lot more powerful than he was in the first one. And I mean, the VFX don't look bad. They look all right. And I have hope for the movie. Like I don't think it's gonna be like trash or anything. I think it's probably gonna be around the same, the first one, maybe mid 70 tier, in terms of Rotten Tomatoes,
Well,
possibly.
I will tell you that Aquaman is probably my favorite character when it comes to the DC universe. So I really hope that this movie is successful, especially when we looked at DC lately, and I mean, they really haven't had too much, come out that's really been great. I mean, I know a lot of people liked Blue Beetle. So, I mean, we do see that DC like started off, I guess, James Gunn's new DC universe like started off on a good foot with Blue Beetle. So hopefully this Aquaman movie continues that trend. And from what I can see by the trailer, it looks really good. It looks like there's gonna be a lot of action. So I think if they write it properly and they kind of, cut some people out and, maybe give screen time to more people, and avoid the controversy, it will be a pretty good movie.
Yeah, I mean, especially like when I think about like in terms of Jason Momoa, like I feel like he is great as Aquaman, and he's very charismatic on screen. So I think he will be a saving grace of DC as well. I hope we do see more of his character in the future, but it's hard to say because again, this
Well, we
movie
are
is
going to see Tamara Morrison again, so he's going to be coming back. And then obviously there was Nicole Kidman was in the trailer, so we're going to see her again. Because heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
gotta love that. Gotta love Nicole. Um, but again, I think it's gonna be it might be one of the first DC movies in a while to actually make money because Shazam 2, Black Adam, and Blue Beetle, I'm pretty sure all did not make money. Like
Yeah.
in terms of actually turning a profit. Like I don't think Shazam did. I definitely know Black Adam did not. And Blue Beetle was one of the lowest I think it just beat out Shazam in terms of its, opening. But not saying it was a bad movie. I don't know why DC can't, what's the word, gain that traction. I don't know if it's because people are kind of like, oh, what's the point, or maybe they're waiting for big names like
I think it also
Aquaman.
doesn't help that they have a deal with Max where like, fans know that it's going to come out on Max eventually, so they're like, "Oh, why would I go see it in the theater?"
Yeah, that's true. Like the Flash is on Max now, and I still
Mhm.
never saw Flash in theaters. And but I guess it's good because I really didn't get no spoilers, and I could watch it. Again, I suggest any sort of superhero movie or hero or anything like that. You should definitely see in a theater, just because of the amount of VFX and all that special effects that go into it. It's gonna look better on the big screen, but like my brother said, if they already have deals and people know, oh, I only got to wait like 2 more months, I don't really care so much about seeing it when it comes out. Yeah, they're gonna save money and watch it at home. I mean, a lot of people, if you have a big ass TV and you have a comfy setup, I mean, I wouldn't see why they wouldn't want to make the trip. I mean, some people's lifestyles might not even have really the time to pull apart 4 hours of your day to go to the movies.
But guys, we are not here to talk about DC today and
Yeah,
the beautiful man that is Jason Momoa. We are here to talk about Star Wars.
Star, Star Wars, Star
So
Wars.
I think, to get into this episode, after we got all of our, you know, tangent and, stuff out of the way, I think we just start with our ratings. So obviously out of Suns, if we could give it anything more than a 10, honestly, I would. I mean, this is a solid 10 out of 10 performance for me. This is a 10 out of 10 Suns. There was absolutely nothing wrong with this episode. I do have just one thing I want to talk about, but it's not really a nitpick. It's just kind of something that they did a little interesting that, I want to hear your opinion and think if, see if you thought the same thing. But solid 10 out of 10 Suns. I mean, this was the proof that every Star Wars fan needed. I mean, this is exactly what Star Wars needs to be. This whole episode was just entirely better than anything that was put out in the sequel trilogy. Um, it really does show you that Dave Filoni is George Lucas's apprentice, and he is the
There's
next
always
saving
two.
grace, and he is the hope. He is the new hope of Star Wars.
Uh,
So we just gotta
uh,
pray that this man gets the
uh,
recognition and the control that he needs, and he's gonna be the one that saves Star Wars. Like, I mean, honestly, I don't even care about the Dawn of the Jedi movie. I don't even care about the Rey sequel movie. I want to see his movie. Like that's all I care about.
that my rating is the gaseous ball of fire that a sun is. 10 out of 10 of those.
Ooh,
Infinite 10 out of 10 of those. This
ooh.
man, I'm telling you, can cook with nothing but a match and a piece of lettuce. I said this to my brother the other day, and this
What?
man, the I said this to you, you just don't remember.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure I did, or I said it to somebody. This man Dave Filoni, the cowboy hat man himself, like my brother said, is George Lucas's apprentice, and he is cooking, and he just continues to cook. And this episode alone just proved that this show will probably be one of the best live action shows, on par with The Mandalorian. That may be a hot take to some of you, just because the show is not even over yet, but there has already been two phenomenal episodes that are better than The Mandalorian season 3 by far. And this episode was one of the best pieces of Star Wars fiction that we have gotten in a long time. And it just shows that Star Wars fans should be excited for Dave Filoni's movie, because there's really nothing he can't do at this point. And he has proved again and again that he is the man that should be in charge, and he is the man that can just control the world of Star Wars. I mean, the amount of times my jaw was dropped on the floor, the amount of times I got goosebumps, the amount of times that I paused it, like those TikToks you saw. I'm like 1 second into the episode, like, oh, he's cooking. Oh my god, like, literally that. As soon as I would see one, like, light, I'd be like, that's it, that take my money, like, just no words. But yeah, absolutely perfect, 10 out of 10. Maybe there is one thing I have to talk about, like, too, but I really don't think there's any sort of negative in this episode at all. From start to finish, I was just so intrigued, and there are higher points in certain parts, maybe a
Right.
little more interesting, but there were still scenes that, even if it wasn't action packed or anything like that, I was just like, I was in awe. This
Right.
episode really had me in awe. It really did have my jaw on the floor. And it was, I feel like this is one of the only other times that I have really sat there and watched something and like felt like I was a kid again. Like,
Yeah.
I really feel like Dave Filoni brought back
I think
how
I
it,
think the last time I probably felt like that was like watching the finale of the Clone Wars, to be
that's what
honest.
I was gonna say. I was like, Dave Filoni brought back those 2020 vibes of Clone Wars season
Mhm.
7, and he just turned 20 years of somebody's childhood into reality, and
Well,
showed
I mean,
us that.
let's break it down a little bit. So, I mean, obviously, we'll start with the negative stuff, just to get it out of the way. So, for me, again, the only thing that I like nitpicked or was just a little curious about is the scene where it's Jason, Chopper, and Hera, and they're on Cetos, and Jason is feeling out with the Force. And then, by the way, if you watch the episode, it's pretty much confirmed that Jason is Force sensitive. I mean, if you
Yeah.
cannot realize that by the end of this episode, then like that you have some serious problems. Um, but he's reaching out with the Force. He hears what sounds like a lightsaber battle, and he has his mom come listen. And they both close their eyes. They're both trying to listen, and just the way the scene panned out, it almost made it seem like Hera was also able to hear what Jason was hearing, because the way she reacted almost made it sound like she heard the lightsabers too. And honestly, if that was the case, like if she was actually able to hear the lightsabers, then that does kind of bother me a little bit, because there should be no reason why she should be able to hear these. I mean,
Yeah.
it should be something that is only available to Jason to make his character more special. So in a way, I almost saw it as like, you know what? Maybe she's just supporting her son. She doesn't actually hear it, but she trusts her son and she went with her instincts, and that's why they conduct the search and everything anyway. But again, I mean, I don't think anything's been really confirmed, but just the way the scene played out and everything, it almost made you feel like, oh shit, like did she actually hear the lightsabers too? And if she did, then I kind of have a problem with that, because I don't think she should be able to. Because again, it just goes with the whole thing about being force sensitive, and for someone like Jason to be able to tap into it, like makes a lot more sense and develops his character a lot more. And if anything, if Hera is able to hear it as well, then it kind of nullifies Jason's character. Because then it's like,
Yeah.
oh well, if anybody tries hard enough and they close their eyes, then anybody can hear it. So I mean, again, I hope it's what I think, and she didn't hear it, and she was just kind of supporting her son. But if it comes out that she actually was able to hear it, then I kind of have a little bit of a problem. But again, it's not that big of a problem where it ruins the episode for me, obviously. So I mean, I would still give it a 10 out of 10, but just that bit of the episode kind of had me like thinking for a second.
So it kind of makes me think of like two things. Like, I can't really recall moments from from Rebels with Kanan and Hera, but there was probably moments in Rebels when maybe Kanan was showing Hera something and kind of was similar, like close your eyes and listen, and maybe she sort of did hear. Maybe that's some sort of weird force ability thing that really isn't explored. Or I think the more popular one, like you're saying, I think they just kind of showed her hearing the lightsaber sounds to show what's his name?
Jason.
Showed Jason's abilities. I don't actually think she heard it because it really didn't seem like that. I think she was just doing what she would do as a mother and trust her son and his instincts. And, obviously she would close her eyes and, they still, you know, played the sounds, but I don't think she was like, yeah, like those are lightsabers because she really never commented on it. She just commented in terms of going for the search. And I just think that's her following her son and the trust that she has. And, maybe at points, she did something similar like that with Kanan, where it wasn't to the same extent, but, he was like, oh, like, this, hear this. And, maybe she tried but couldn't, or tried and somehow did through Kanan. Maybe she can, maybe somehow Jason can also do it with his
Yeah.
mom. I don't know. But I wouldn't
I
look
mean,
too far
honestly,
into
I
that.
would just like to think that it was just more like you said, like along the lines that, you know what, she was simply just supporting her son. She was trying to see if she could hear or feel what he was feeling, and she just ended up, deciding to go with her gut, go with her instincts, and trust her son. And because I feel like if you try to like bring Kanan into it, and like you explain like, okay, like maybe this is stuff that they did on the sides that we didn't see in Rebels, like because
I don't
obviously,
think they're gonna
obviously
like
she's
say
seeing a
that. I'm
Jedi,
just
so like
saying
there
that's
might have been a
my
time where like maybe she joined him in meditation, or like she tried to do the things that he did. Um, I mean, again, some of that stuff could have been possible, but I think it's just safe to say that, you know what, it was either A, she actually did hear those lightsabers, or B, it was just her supporting her son, and that's what we want to go with. And that's what I'm going with. Because they've done Hera's character so well that I don't think that Filoni would just be like, oh yeah, by the way, she could hear that, so she has a little bit of force. And I was like, nah, that's not his style. I don't see him doing that to a character like Hera, so I just like to think it's the latter, and like she's just simply supporting her son, and she just trusted her son, and obviously it ended up working out. So
yeah. I wouldn't think too hard into it. Like I really don't think it's any sort of thing about her being force sensitive. I don't think they're really gonna pull that leg at this stage in Ahsoka, nor to Hera's character. I mean, I think people know Hera's character. They're used to what she is, and they'll keep it that way. So yeah, I mean, I don't, I really wasn't even thinking about that until you said it. I was kind of just so caught up in the moment of him, showing a little more of his force abilities, even though like he wasn't moving anything with the force, but tapping. And what I like is they're not just going with he's force sensitive, he can move a rock. Like no, like he's actually tapping into these abilities that are kind of crucial to being a force sensitive being. And what he did was pretty impressive, for somebody that may or may not have been practicing his sort of talents. And I hope um, later in the season, or maybe next season if they do another season, we see him, working alongside Huang and kind of training and seeing, a little version of Kanan. That would be very cool. Because I definitely I'm liking that they're showing more of his character. That's always good to see.
yeah, yeah, I agree. So what was your negative thing about the episode?
Um, I mean, my negative thing kind of just was, I don't want to say like, because they gave us a lot in this episode. I wish maybe we saw like 2 minutes of like, kind of what's going on with Balin and Sabine and them. But I figured they were going to do that in the next episode. I
Yeah,
figured that's what it's going to focus on
I mean
heavily. This
that's pretty
this
much what I
one
was
just
gonna.
being one thing, but it's not really a negative sort. It's just like
Yeah,
I thought they would have, but
yeah.
obviously they needed the
Well, I
whole
mean
episode
that's
to kind of
basically
focus what
what
was
my
the
counter would
content.
have been to you. It basically would have just been like, well, they're probably just saving that for the next episode because again, everybody thought that we were going to see Thrawn this episode, and obviously we didn't. So, again, I didn't mind that we didn't know what was going on with them because
Yeah.
they could have been traveling in hyperspace this whole time for what we for what we knew, So I mean,
Yeah.
I think they did the right thing, and like I said, when the next episode rolls around, we're probably going to see them again when Thrawn is finally introduced and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't think it's a negative. Um, but I do know what you mean, because obviously we've been following these characters like for like 5 episodes, so it would have been nice just to see what they were doing. But the way the episode played out, like there was really no need. So it's not like they were missed anyway, Like in all
Yeah.
honesty, I kind of forgot about them for the episode just because like so much
Yeah.
happened that like it didn't even cross my mind. I was like, oh yeah, I was like, there are characters that are trying to go get Thrawn right now. Oh yeah, you know.
I mean, something else that kind of annoyed me, but like I know they're also like this, is what is it? The the how are they called? Not the rebellion. The new you know what I'm talking about.
The Resistance.
Yeah, the new resistance. They annoy me. I just like it's
Oh no, they're the New Republic.
New Republic. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Mhm.
Um, they annoy me. Especially when they came to CTOS. I mean, I know they're supposed to be like that, but
Yeah.
I was kind of just
Well,
like
that
they
just that
came.
just goes to show you how, like, again, they're corrupt and they follow everything by the book and whatever, blah blah blah. And like the same people that helped overthrow the empire and formed this new republic are being targeted because they're not doing what this new republic wants it to do.
Yeah,
So I mean, it just goes to show you that the cycle of corruption and government and everything just continues. I mean, from the Clone Wars all the way up until the sequel trilogy. I mean, we just see the same thing happen over and over again.
it's just crazy that like they haven't sat down and just been like, it's been going on for like hundreds of years. Like, what's going on here? Like, like,
Yeah.
well, why does this keep happening every time we
Well,
form a new government?
it's like poetry. It rhymes. It just, I just
Yeah, history often rewrites itself, and it seems like that's what happens in terms of Star Wars politics. um,
seriously.
but I mean,
So
that's
I
not
mean,
really me being annoying. That's just me nitpicking, just because like I was. It was kind of funny though because at first they were like, "Oh, do this, do that," and then like, "Yeah, you might want to get out of the way," and they're like, "Oh," and then
I just love
so
like the
what was
part
it?
where Hu Yang is talking to the like New Republic pilot guy that we see in The Mandalorian, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Jason Syndulla's father was Kanan Jarrus. He was the Jedi." And then he's like, "Okay, all right, whatever." Like
He's
it
just
just
like,
goes to
I
show
guess
you
we'll
like
go
how
sleep.
like at least in this point like in the Skywalker saga like how being force sensitive and being a Jedi like really doesn't mean shit anymore, to be honest. Like some people think they're fairy tales, some people don't even think they're real, and then other people just are like, whatever. Like you guys have been around forever. I don't really care anymore.
I think
So
it's because
I
it's
mean
like
I
they're not.
obviously I think that guy cared, but he was just like, okay, whatever. He's like, all right, what else is new?
I did like that about him because he's like, I guess we'll just go sweep. She's the boss, like I do like him. I think he's a pretty cool character.
Yeah, there was
But
also a cool little Easter egg where when he was when him and the X-Wings were confronting the New Republic fleet, he said he was from the Adelphi base, and that's the base that we saw in The Mandalorian, and that's where we saw Zeb. So that was pretty cool.
that is pretty
Um,
cool.
but enough of the negatives. Let us get into everything that was great about this episode. And before we even
Let's get
start,
people. So,
I'm gonna look into this camera, and I'm talking to you, Clone Boys. Okay? Yeah, yeah. You know who you are if you're a Clone Boy. Okay?
yeah.
There was absolutely nothing wrong with any character designs. The amount of TikToks that I've seen of people just taking screenshots of like people's tweets and like pointing out everything that was wrong with like Captain Rex's like live action armor.
Oh my
You
god.
Clone Boys like just you give Clone Wars fans such a bad name because like God forbid it's anything but the Clone Wars or there's like one thing off of your fantasy, then like you just ruin it for everybody. So to all you Clone Boys out there, get over yourself. This was exactly what every Star Wars fan that pictured the Clone Wars in live action to be. The costumes were amazing, makeup, effects, everything was amazing. The clone troopers, the vehicles, everything. There was not a single god darn thing wrong about that whole entire sequence. So you guys could just shut up right now and leave. If you
Exactly.
felt
We
any differently.
we don't want that because Star Wars fans, you have to understand that to transform something from animation to live action, it's extremely hard because there are certain angles and certain effects that you will not get in the real world. Just like people complained maybe about Ahsoka in the way she may have looked, it is very hard to have something. And if you want to complain about looks, just talk about the way Dooku looked in the animated show and live action. That man would have had a long ass head and a sharp ass beard. So shut the hell up and enjoy what Filoni has given you. Because like my brother said, the clones looked beautiful in phase 1. The clones looked beautiful in the phase 2. The 332nd clones.
See, now
Mandalore.
I think the way we should break down the rest of this episode. So I mean, let's talk about some of the smaller stuff. So I mean, obviously the scenes towards the end of the episode, like the last like 15, 20 minutes. I think Ahsoka reemerging as like Ahsoka the White, similar to Gandalf. I think that was great. That
Yes.
was basically the Ahsoka that we saw in those last 20 minutes was like the Ahsoka that we know and love, and that's what I was talking about when I was referring to her personality. That was the type of Ahsoka I wanted to see all along.
I
But
actually
now,
really did
but
like
wait,
those
but
scenes.
now I understand why she was the way she was because she had to go through this whole personal development
Uh,
story,
uh, uh,
which makes sense that she was so gloomy and so gray, just like Gandalf, and then again she was reborn just like Gandalf, and now you have two versions of Gandalf and
Are you trying
Ahsoka.
to say that Ahsoka is Gandalf?
Basically, yeah, I
Or
mean,
Gandalf
basically
is
her
Ahsoka?
story is basically taken from Lord of the Rings, pretty much.
Right.
Um, but this version of Ahsoka is the exact version I wanted to see. But then now realizing that this was his plan all along, I kind of shoot myself in the foot for ever doubting, this great man Filoni and what he's doing with Ahsoka's character. So it does make sense. So I really did like that. Um, I love everything. Like I said, like the little banter between like the New Republic fleet and the X-wings. I mean, that was great. I love the whole Purgle things, how she connected. And some people think, oh, she has like beast taming. That's really cool. It's like I don't think it's that, because that's something
No.
that Ezra has. That's like Ezra's ability. I think, and again, if you watch Tales of the Jedi, you know that when she was a baby, she like tamed this like lion or
Yeah.
tiger or whatever. But I think, and my boss kind of talked about this. I think it's her just simply connecting with these animals through the Force, and that's what she did when she was a baby, and then that's what she did now with the Purgle, and she simply just reached out and connected through the Force, and from there it ended up working. And again, the line where she's like, oh, like Hu Yang is like, oh, so do you have any idea where we're going? And she's like, nope, I have no idea. It's like that's the Ahsoka that I was missing, so I was just so happy to see her in that role again. And everything about those last 20 minutes was great. I mean, so that was just perfect. I mean, we talked about it a little bit before, all the scenes with Jason on CTOS, like, tapping into the Force, feeling the world between worlds and everything. All those scenes were great. So I mean, really any of the scenes that did not associate with Ahsoka and Anakin is what I'm getting at. All those scenes were great. I mean, we didn't get too much of them because obviously most of the episode was focused on one specific pair. But all those moments were great. Really nothing to complain about. Like I said, besides that like little Hera thing, but otherwise it was great. I mean, like I said, I mean, Ahsoka's character, I mean, her transformation into like Ahsoka the White, I mean, is just the exact character development that she needed, and I'm just curious to see how this is going to transfer over to these last three episodes. Um, and I mean, everybody else kind of stayed the same. I mean, obviously, we know Jason is force sensitive. I mean, it was pretty much confirmed in this episode, but everybody else kind of stayed the same. There's really no development with them. Um, so yeah, I mean, like I said, I think all those scenes were pretty good, and yeah, really nothing to complain about there. So.
I have to say that Rosario Dawson's acting, especially between her and Anakin, were among some of the best we've seen as her as Ahsoka. I just thought that any sort of dialogue between them two was beautiful, especially captured back in time now, just whatever period of time it was in. I feel like it was just captured exactly how anybody would picture those two, and especially now, the fact that Filoni really did what people like could have just never imagined, and it completely probably was 100 times better than what anybody thought. Was just short of amazing. Like really, since the episode just focused on Anakin and Ahsoka, even if it was Rosario Dawson or the different version, it was just beautiful. Especially how much, if you really kind of sit down and listen, um, what their monologues meant. Like kind of like my brother said, like this was that turning point of what Ahsoka needed to kind of see the Ahsoka that everybody, so to speak, knows and loves.
Yeah.
And I think that this 100% was the turning point for the show, and we will see a different side of Ahsoka Not necessarily a different side, but we will definitely see a change from her tone from episode 1 to now. And I'm very curious to see which direction her character goes in the next couple of episodes, because we only got 3 episodes left, and I have a feeling that the next one isn't really gonna ironically focus crazy on Ahsoka. Like I know obviously she will be in it; it's her show, but I feel like it's kind of gonna be like a Book of Boba Fett episode,
Mhm.
where we're gonna maybe we'll see Thrawn. Maybe I don't know yet, or I would love to
Well, the thing is that
we'll
like
get into it.
when we like break down all these Ahsoka trailers, the only part of these Ahsoka trailers that we haven't seen yet is the introduction of Thrawn. So we have no idea what are in these next 3 episodes, which I actually kind of like because then there's really nothing to expect. So you go in blind and then you just are watching everything for the first time, like for those like 35 minutes, 40 minutes, however long these episodes are.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's probably one of the smartest choices, because even though we know we're getting the introduction of Thrawn, we don't know if we're gonna see Ezra. We don't know if we're gonna hear. I mean, we'll definitely probably hear about him. We don't even know if Ahsoka's gonna reach where Thrawn is. We don't
Mhm.
even. Ahsoka might end up in another freaking galaxy. We don't know what's gonna happen. But I love that. I love that these next 3 episodes we're going in blind, and they're leaving it on such a big high that I just really don't think anybody can come down from it. And again, I don't know if Filoni's directing another episode, but he doesn't need to. You know, for example, he didn't direct episode 4, yet it was amazing. So I mean, whoever, as long as Filoni's writing, I trust in this process that it'll definitely go well. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think we should probably definitely get into the episode and kind of what it focused around.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
what we
so
thought.
I mean, basically, we kind of talked about everything that we wanted to get out of the way. So then we're just going to spend the rest of the episode talking about what we want to talk about. And again, I mean, the episode in its entirety was great, but there's just stuff that we'd rather dive into more detail about or just talk about more, which is why we're saving it for last. But now that we got everything else out of the way, now we could dive right into all the juicy stuff. So
Hmm.
this episode is titled Episode 5, The Shadow Warrior. So we see the episode open up. And then again, we talked about those scenes in the very beginning with Hera and Jason, whatever. But then we see Ahsoka. So we're back in the world between worlds. We see Ahsoka with Anakin, and right off the bat, I mean they just got some good dialogue going. Just the classic um, like Anakin's like, "Oh, you look old," and then she's like, "Yeah, well, that's what happens." It's just like
Yeah.
it's kind of like classic, like back and forth, like you gotta love it and everything. And obviously, we see Anakin or Hayden Christensen donning his Return of this, sorry, Revenge of the Sith attire because. According to Ahsoka, that was the last time that she physically saw Anakin. So when she's looking at him, that's what she's picturing.
Hmm.
Now everybody was like, "Oh yeah, but technically she saw him in like Rebels when like he turned back to like Anakin for a second." It's like, yeah, no, that doesn't really count. Okay, like we're talking about like the
Hold on.
last time she has physically been with Anakin, and that
Yeah.
was during season 7 of the Clone Wars when he was in his Revenge of the Sith attire. So the Force is projecting that image of Anakin. So right away we see the classic banter. He calls her Snips again, which is like, yes, like that.
Goosebumps.
Just keep it going. Um, and then we get to the overall theme of the episode, which is Anakin turns his back to Ahsoka to teach her one final lesson. He ignites his lightsaber and he's like, "Live or die." And then she's like, "I won't fight you." And then what's interesting is that he's like, "Funny, I've heard that before." So people are theorizing that it could be from when they faced off in Rebels, and she was like, "I won't fight you," because I mean, she said that like I mean, again, when his mask was kind of cut
Mhm.
open, she's like, "I won't fight you" or "I won't leave you." It wasn't "I won't."
I think
I don't
it's
think
like
it
I
was.
won't leave you again or something.
I
Like,
don't. Yeah, I don't think she ever said "I won't fight you." To be honest, I think she said "I won't leave you," not this time. And then he was like, "Then you will die." So when you kind of break it down, he might have actually been referring to the scene in Return of the Jedi when he's fighting Luke on the second Death Star, and then Luke is like, "I will not fight you, Father." So like, if this Force premonition is of Anakin Skywalker of whole body and mind, and this is Anakin Skywalker, but then this is also Darth Vader, and this is just his whole character as a whole. Even though we are seeing him in his Revenge of the Sith attire, I believe that this is all of Anakin Skywalker. This is his
I think we
light
are
side.
because of
This
what
is
we've
his
seen.
dark
Yes.
side. This is everything of his character combined into one, and we're just seeing him as his version in Revenge of the Sith. So you can incorporate it or interpret it as either it was when Ahsoka told it to him in Star Wars Rebels, or when Luke said it to him in Return of the Jedi. Otherwise, if it's when he's referring to Luke saying it, I think that's pretty cool because that's like a nice little tie back to the original trilogy. And again, just goes to show that this Force premonition like has all of Anakin's memories. So like, even though we're seeing him in the younger attire in the Revenge of the Sith attire, this is Anakin Skywalker full and full. So I mean, he would still know who Luke Skywalker is. He would still remember those words. He would remember that battle. So, which I think is really cool. And obviously they start sparring. So I mean, right away it's just like, and what's so good is that Hayden Christensen was just so fluid. He was so natural that like it was like he never left. It was like the Revenge of the Sith just happened like a couple of months ago, and like he was just like fresh off of the choreography and the training. And I'm sure he had to go through a little bit more training. I mean, thankfully he was in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, so he had that training on hand like recently, and I'm sure he had to do more for the Ahsoka show. But as soon as he did that like lightsaber spin behind the back, I was like,
Yeah,
yep, I was like, that is
that's the guy.
prime Anakin Skywalker. That is Revenge of the Sith, Battle of Mustafar, Battle of the Heroes. Like that is, yep, that is just like it's like it's almost like he never left. And again, I mean, obviously, it's been like what almost like 18 years or
Yeah,
so, like
almost
since
20
Revenge
years.
of the Sith. So it's like this man has kind of been away from Star Wars for a while, and it felt like he never left, which
Mhm.
I mean is just a true testament to his acting and his passion for Star Wars and for playing the character of Anakin Skywalker, which was great. And I mean, we love to see it. And it was that whole beginning sequence, up until the very end of the duel. And again, even just the nice little smirk where he's like, "Oh, I haven't taught you everything yet," and then just bam, just puts like just destroys the floor right under her, and then she falls into her next memory, which we'll talk about in a second. But otherwise, the beginning of their conversation, the little lesson that they have, the duel, I mean, everything was just perfect.
I really do believe that this episode showed how much Hayden Christensen does enjoy playing Anakin and how well he does at playing Anakin. Like, obviously we saw it, almost decades ago in Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones, etc. And, more recently in Kenobi. But this is really where he got to flex more of his acting muscles and stuff because Hayden Christensen really was, really didn't do anything after Star Wars because of the amount of backlash and hate he got and the fact that it's almost 20 years later and he's getting all this love and support and everything behind him because of how much people love his character, just it shows that this is what they should have been doing all along because he's proving that he is the right choice for Anakin. And regardless or not, if you think the prequels are cringy or whatever some of the dialogue is just Hayden Christensen can act his ass off. And him as Anakin is, I think, a perfect casting. He's to me what Robert Downey Jr. is as Iron Man to a lot of Marvel fans. And in this, and one of the biggest things I loved is when he was fighting Ahsoka. Just look at his facial expressions. Like there are so many times where if you just look in his eyes, if you look in his smile, if you look just literally just concentrate on the face, and you will see how this man can just shift like that. And that is crucial to what this episode was because like you were saying, I do think this is a rendition of the memories that of Darth Vader and possibly that fight with Luke because of the flashes that we see of the two sides of Anakin Skywalker and or Darth Vader.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. And like I said, I think those flashes represent Ahsoka's memories because obviously she knows what Anakin turns into. So I think when those flashes happen, that's like, the present day Ahsoka realizing what he becomes.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, again, I mean, we see these flashes that are happening in the Clone Wars. Obviously, he wasn't Darth Vader in the Clone Wars. So this is her present day memory kind of seeping into these memories and being like, oh, well, it might be nice to reminisce about the Clone Wars and, from when we first met, but you eventually turn out into this like really bad guy that I do not like. And I mean, that was the whole point of the lesson because she was so caught up on the fact that, yes, you were my master, you were Anakin Skywalker, but eventually I fail you and I walk away and you turn into Darth Vader. And he was like, You're not getting the point. That's not what I'm." He was basically telling her that it is not your fault. It was not your responsibility that I fell to the dark side. I turned into Darth Vader. This is not your fault. You need to stop beating yourself up over it.
Mhm.
And I mean, we'll get to like that scene in a couple of minutes, but again, that was the whole point of his lesson: either to live or die. Are you going to live for yourself and move on and move forward with your life, or are you going to die? Are you going to let the memories consume you, or are you going to let fear and anger drive you, and then are you going to turn to the dark side as well? And I mean, those were basically the two representations of live or die. And I mean, obviously, by the end of the episode, we see that she chooses to live. And again, that whole Ahsoka the White, the rebirth, the redemption, and her moving forward with the episode. But after she obviously falls down, we see that she enters another memory. And this is where like everybody's jaws dropped. Like if they were eating or drinking something, like they probably spilled it, they probably dropped it. I mean, like this
I
was
was.
just like I was eating a munchkin and like I had it like up to here, and like as soon as I saw it, like I dropped it because like my jaw dropped, and I was just like, and it was so good. So we see her wake up. Obviously, there's a lot of sand, a lot of dust. So originally some people might have thought it was like geonosis, but we see as she wakes up, we see her adorning her basically her Star Wars The Clone Wars outfit, like pretty much before season 7, I guess you would say. So no skimpy like just chest thing. Like I mean, they gave her full clothing, which was nice. Obviously, she was portrayed by a younger actress, which the actress did play young Gamora in Infinity War, and then she was also recently in the Barbie movie. And by the way, she did a phenomenal job.
She killed it.
She really killed it. I mean, in both transitions from like, the Battle of Ryloth, like over to the Siege of Mandalore. I mean, she killed it in both aspects.
Hmm.
Um, so we see her in her younger self. She has her green lightsaber. She has her, Padawan braid still. She's basically back as a preteen, pretty much. And then we start seeing Phase One clone troopers run by her. We see a AT, the
The
Republic tank that you have in Lego
AT
form.
field.
We see that in the background. We see
Gunships.
a LAAT in the background, and then all of a sudden we see the man himself, Hayden Christensen, run out with that classic Clone Wars battle armor, and it was almost like Christmas Day. I mean,
It
this
was
was like
just
what
beautiful.
every
It
Star Wars fan
beautiful.
that was ever. I mean, and again, people have to realize that obviously Star Wars has spanned over generations, right? So there are people that grew up with the original trilogy. There are people that grew up with the prequel trilogy, and there are people that are getting into it now because of the sequel trilogy. Me and my brother, just based on when we were born and what time frame we joined Star Wars, we grew up with the prequel trilogy. So we grew up with the Star Wars, the Clone Wars TV show. We grew up with Star Wars Rebels. We grew up with the prequel movies and everything. So that is how we were introduced to Star Wars. So we have a
Mm.
certain love to the prequel trilogy. We're not clone boys. That's not the only thing that we like about Star Wars. We don't nitpick every little thing that they do when it comes to the Clone Wars, but the Clone Wars and the prequel trilogy will always have a special place in our hearts because that's how our Star Wars journey became and came about. Just like how my
Mhm.
boss is a very big Return of the Jedi fan because that's how his Star Wars story started. So it's like, everybody has their own little faucet of like how they came into this, Star Wars family. And that's how, me and you came into it. So after spending like 20 plus years, like just becoming a fan of Star Wars, just getting so obsessed with it, like having it being a part of our personality, just who we are, seeing our childhood memories being brought to life on a screen was like, just almost talking about it just like almost brings like, just like tears to your eyes because it was like, it was almost like we were like sitting in front of a laptop watching the Clone Wars movie for the first time, like during a hurricane. Like, I mean, that's how much it meant to fans like us to see what we love and what we grew up on the main stage. And I mean, it was beautifully portrayed. They got everything down to a T. And it was probably a moment that we'll probably never forget for the rest of our lives and for as long as we like Star Wars.
This reminds me of probably how some of those original trilogy fans felt when they saw Luke Skywalker and the Mandalorian. I guarantee that's very similar to how they felt. But I was just telling my brother before this that this excuse me this was like, again, your childhood being brought to life. There are very few times I've ever sat and watched a film, TV show, whatever it was, piece of media, and was just in shock. Wow, like no words, goosebumps, like all out at once. The only other times that has really happened was in 2020 when season 7 of the Clone Wars came out, especially the last episode, because that was kind of when, okay, my childhood was coming to an end. Somehow it got right back up, and Dave Filoni made, I'm sure, a lot of people's dreams true, and it really truly looked beautiful. It's like, honestly, Clone Boys or whoever you are, shut the hell up, stop nitpicking, because this is something that, yes, it can happen in live action. It is beautiful in live action. The fact that Hayden Christensen looks perfect, and just from the glows of the lightsabers and just the silhouettes of the clones, I was in awe. I was in awe, like, of it, and there's really no other words for it besides beautiful as well. This was something, and just again, I give props to both Hayden Christensen and the actress that portrayed young Ahsoka, because their banter and a couple of parts we'll get into later. I mean, you take clips side to side and pictures side to side from the Clone Wars show and here. I mean, come on. Like I don't know how they nailed it. I really don't know how they did that, but somehow see, this is where I see that Dave Filoni cares. It's like, even though I'm sure his job is stressful as hell because he really wants to please fans, it shows that he knows Star Wars. He's done his research, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna make some dreams come true right now, and that's exactly what he did, just by showing. Again, as soon as I heard the gunfire, as soon as I saw like a silhouette, and then I actually saw a meme of it where it was one of the first clones running, just standard phase 1 white clone trooper. It was like, oh, just like the simulations. If you've ever seen that picture, literally just shot for shot that. But it really was beautiful, and I really did think it was Geonosis at first until I saw the Twi'leks, and I was like, oh, okay, it's Ryloth.
Right. Mm. So I mean, as we just mentioned, like eventually we do find out that this is actually one of the first missions that Anakin and Ahsoka went on after they became Master and Apprentice. And for those of you that know the Star Wars: The Clone Wars show, this arc actually happens at the end of season 1, which I think takes place over the span of 3 episodes. And obviously, they're basically retaking Ryloth from the Separatist Alliance because the Separatists have blockaded the planet and they have taken over. I think the Separatist leader that's in charge of the Techno Union, I think he was the one that took over the planet, if I
Yeah,
remember. So obviously, like, if you remember those arcs, like, there's a couple episodes that happen in space because obviously they have to break the Separatist blockade. So that's where it focuses on like Anakin and Ahsoka. And then after they break the blockade, we see a combination of Mace Windu and Obi-Wan Kenobi on the ground. So we don't really know whatever happens to Anakin and Ahsoka after they win the space battle. So we just assume that after they clean up, the battles in space and they do whatever they have to do in space, then they eventually join on the ground with the 501st Legion and they help Obi-Wan. I think they are more geared towards helping Obi-Wan because I think Mace Windu goes off and does his own thing, and I think Obi-Wan does his own thing as well. So they might
yeah,
go to reinforce Obi-Wan in the 212th, which is why we would have never saw them in those episodes because it focused primarily on. I mean, there were some parts that focused on Obi-Wan Kenobi, there were some parts that focused on Mace Windu, but regardless, we find out that eventually their space battle became a land battle, and they ended up going down to Ryloth to fight with the Freedom Fighters and, like I said, the 501st and everything. And that we find out again this is one of their first missions together, and we see as the flashback continues, we see that eventually, I guess, that little battle they were part of finished because they're kind of collecting their dead, kind of like tending to their wounded, and we see Ahsoka sit down by a clone trooper that has his face wrapped, and we see she puts his hand out to kind of comfort him, and then he reciprocates basically. And apparently, which I didn't know, but now that I know, it just makes me really sad. While she is sitting there, kind of holding this clone trooper's hand, the music that played in the final episode of the Clone Wars, where she's looking over the graves of like all the clone troopers.
burying the dead.
Yeah,
That's
so
what it's called.
that soundtrack basically plays in the background of that scene for a couple seconds if you listen closely. So now that I know that, it just like it makes me really sad to think about that.
I mean, that's just that. See, it's that attention to detail that is just astonishing to me. Like the fact that he also put in the freedom fighters in there. It's like, standard people aren't gonna be like who the hell what
It would
what
have
is
been
the
so
Twi'lek?
it would have been
You know,
so
like
cool if we saw like a live action blurg. Like just imagine we saw like one like the Twi'leks just riding a blurg. I mean, that would have been so cool.
yeah. Well, I mean, technically we've seen the live action Blurgs, but it would have been
I
cool to see
know,
them in
but it would have been
action.
cool to see them like in the
Yeah,
Clone Wars, like when we first saw them.
that really would have been cool. I didn't even think of that, but that's crazy. And again, like that scene, and like you have to picture that Ahsoka at this point is what 11. I
Yeah.
I don't even
Which
know how.
that's also like another thing that really kind of shocked or made Star Wars fans really realize is that we knew that these Padawans were younger. I mean, we understood that while watching the cartoons and everything. But it never really registered as deeply because again, we never saw it in live action. So when you see
Mhm.
this like 10 or 11-year-old kid run into battle with a lightsaber, you're like, "Oh my God, like they were like child soldiers. Like they were I mean, they were literally fighting before they were like legal."
I mean,
I
she
mean,
literally
like,
has to get told, like, you know, like, okay, yeah, Anakin's like, they're dead. Like, we can't do anything about it. We
and that
have to
was like
put
the
them
first
in
part of the
front of us.
lesson, because we see that he explains to her that, like, depending on the times, like, obviously each master taught their apprentice differently. I mean, when he says when Obi-Wan, was his master, they were still keepers of the peace,
Mhm.
so, but now that they're in the Clone Wars and now that Anakin is the master and Ahsoka's the Padawan, he needs to train her to be a soldier, to be a general. And like she's like, well, is this all there is going to be? Like, am I just going to be like a soldier and a general my whole life? Like, am I just going to do all this killing and everything? And he was like, you just need to adjust to the times that we're in. I mean, this is the time that we're in. I need to teach you this, this, and this so you could survive. And then, because then, like, then she refers to, like, oh, like, am I going to have to teach this to my own Padawan? And then he's like, do you even want a Padawan? So it's like, it kind of goes to show that, like, she's still a child, right? So, like, I mean, she's kind of like, kind of like giving sass or talking back because she's still a child. And the fact that like we have a young Ahsoka basically realizing that like, oh my God, like from an early age, I was surrounded by blood and war and battle and everything. And she's like, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I a soldier? And then again, it just kind of adapts to the whole lesson of, well, you know what? You need to learn to adapt to survive. And if you can't, then because I mean, she asks it, she's like, well, what if I don't want to? And then he's like, well, you're gonna die. And then that's when he walks away. And as he's walking away, you see him slowly transition into Darth Vader. Because again, I think the trigger word of him saying die relates to that dark side path, which is why it makes her think of Darth Vader. And you see that really just well done in and out cut of Anakin going to Darth Vader and then Darth Vader going back to Anakin. It was superbly done. I mean, all the cuts and all the transitions in this episode were phenomenal. And I mean, that's really the first part of the lesson where Anakin's basically like, listen, you need to adapt with the times. You need, it was almost like it was like it is what it is type of mentality. But it's like, you know what? Times are changing. You need to learn to adapt to survive. And if you cannot accept your past and you cannot accept what you did, then you cannot plan your future. And if you're so stuck on the past and everything that you did in the past, then you're gonna die because you're never gonna learn to move forward. You're never gonna learn to adapt and begin anew and you're just going to be stuck in your old ways. And that was basically the first part of the lesson. And,
Yeah.
basically from there, I mean, we see them slowly transition away from Ryloth right into the second great flashback that we saw. And I'll let you take over while I take a lovely sip of water so you can explain that.
Yeah, so again, we see another great transition where, we see her dropped into this other world and we see same actress, different outfit, different outfit. We see her rocking basically her like blue, grayish, white outfit that she had on in season 7, along with the blue lightsabers now. And we are seeing a live action Siege of Mandalore because we see the 332nd clones behind her, jetpack clones, and we even see Death Watch troopers. And I was like, holy shit, like it looked amazing. Like especially when they showed the Death Watch troopers, I was like, no fucking way. Um, Something that I was telling my brother that I thought I would have seen because immediately once I saw the Siege of Mandalore, I thought of, well, Sam Whitaker was confirmed to be in this a voice in this show. Are we gonna see a live action duel of Ahsoka and Maul? I mean, forget it. If that was in the freaking episode, I would have lost my shit more than I already did. Um, But we transition to this where we see her. I don't want to say ruthlessly, but
She's
this
basically
is
kicking
where,
ass, pretty much.
yeah,
I
this is
mean,
where she's
yeah.
like no hesitation. She's taken Mandalore. Basically what we saw in season 7, just going straight in. That's it. Forget about the past. This is what it is. This is what it is now. And um, after it concludes, I forget exactly what she says to Anakin, but we see Anakin come in again, and
Well, basically, we
I
see
think.
Anakin come in, and then he's like, "Oh, I don't recognize this battle." And then that's when
Mhm.
she was like, "Oh, well, we parted ways by then," referring to when they literally parted ways in that Clone Wars
Yeah,
episode, because him and Obi-Wan had to go to Coruscant to like save the Chancellor and everything, and then obviously she had to stay behind and go to Mandalore and everything. So obviously he never saw this battle because he was never on Mandalore. So
yeah, and this is kind of where we see a little bit more of her snippy attitude, in the sense of, yeah, maybe she's sort of accepted like part of being who she is, but also she's not really deep down accepting that this is like the reality of what she has become. And we kind of see that Anakin-esque, definitely taking a part of her now that she's a lot older. And this is where he's like, I told you, you had a choice, either live or, and then there we go again with the die. And this is where we get, he basically, I believe it's either force push or force kick or something, kick her back, hit her back, and then we end up back in the world between worlds, with the grown up Rosario Dawson, Ahsoka, and Anakin. And this is probably where we see another amazing just little duel between them two, and some of the most intense fighting, honestly, that we've seen in live action, definitely recently, if not ever. And a lot of people were saying, because this is where we really see, again, that's why I tell you, look at Anakin's face. This is where we see just pure hatred and anger on his face. I mean, just his orange, yellow, red eyes,
yeah.
the just
And that
his
that kind of couples
expression.
into like the idea that what, it's the a different side of the same coin. So I mean, in the beginning, we saw her dueling Anakin Skywalker, and then we see that we flip the coin, and then we see her dueling, Darth Vader, or what people are coining as Nightfall Vader, which was basically the version of Darth Vader that we got in Revenge of the Sith before he lost to Obi-Wan. So
Mhm.
basically, that was like prime Vader. Like, I mean, if the Emperor got Darth Vader the way he wanted to, that's what people have been dubbing as Nightfall Vader. So this is basically the version of Darth Vader where Anakin never lost that duel on Mustafar and he stayed like pretty much organic. And that's when he would have been his strongest and his most lethal. Um, and again, like you said, I mean, we see that obviously time is obviously passed, from the Battle of Ryloth to the Siege of Mandalore. So we see that she's probably like 16, 17, 18. So she's still only a teenager. So I mean,
Yeah.
one, the fact that she's kicking ass like that, I mean, as a teenager, that just shows you how long she's been in war, you know? And then two, again, also the fact that she was dueling Maul like that, and again, she was only a teenager, goes to show you how well combat experience and battle experience has helped her, but then also how good it is to also have a master like Anakin Skywalker that is very
Yeah.
fluent and very powerful in, like lightsaber combat and swordsmanship and stuff like that. So when you kind of put that all into perspective, you're like, holy shit, like this child just beat up like a former Sith Lord in Darth Maul. I mean, again, granted, he could have been obviously a lot older by then, since like the Phantom Menace up until the Clone Wars, whatever. But still, I mean, again, she was able to go toe to toe with one of the baddest Sith Lords that we've ever seen in Star Wars. So,
Yeah.
and then like you said, we see her with that little arrogant. I mean, the scene where he's standing right next to her and they both have their arms crossed like this was like
Oh,
directly from the
yeah.
Clone Wars, and it was just
Like
it was perfect.
I've seen the side to side, and I'm like, how the hell did they nail it?
It
Like,
was
just
absolutely
beautiful.
perfect. And
All right,
again,
I'm gonna freaking print that out and put it on the wall.
we see that a little bit of like stubbornness and arrogance that again, who did she learn that from? She learned that from Anakin. So again, we see how the personalities and the characteristics are starting to blend with one another. And again, like she still has that resentment and that hate in her heart because she's like, oh, well, I know what you become. You're not always like this or whatever. And then he's finally like, is that what this is about? Are you mad because I became Darth Vader? Is this what you're mad about?
You gonna cry about it, you little
Yeah.
bitch? Like it's
And,
kind of.
and and then he was basically like, well, we're going back to the beginning. He's like, I gave you a choice, live. And then again, he ignites the lightsaber, but this time it's red. He turns around, Sith eyes, and he's like, die. And then again, now now she's like, oh shit, because now she has Darth Vader coming at her instead of Anakin. And we see that he quickly overpowers her, forces her back into the world between worlds, back as her adult version. And again, like that whole transition, that shrug of the shoulders is gonna go down in history as like the most badass moment of like any TV show. And then not only does he shrug his shoulders where it's like, all right, it's game time, but then that flash, but those flashes of him becoming Darth Vader and then
Oh
going
my
back to
god.
Anakin, and then again when he says you lack conviction, and again it's James Earl Jones's voice mixed with Hayden Christensen's voice, perfection, just absolute perfection. It was perfect.
Hmm.
And again, we see them duel once again, but we see that obviously he's a lot more physical, he's a lot more powerful, he's stronger. He's actually trying to kill her, or allegedly. And then we see where it's like, oh my god, is she actually gonna die? But then we see that she's able to like disarm him, and then she grabs his lightsaber, and then again for that split second, which I love, she lets the hate consume her when she gets in
Yeah.
closer. And again, you see the yellow eyes reflect off of the lightsaber, which again, poetry. It rhymes. Okay, it's perfect because she in that second she's embracing the fact that she has these dark side tendencies just like her master,
Yeah, like
but
that part of Anakin is
unlike
in
her
her.
master in that point in time, because again that whole scene was a callback to when Anakin was looking over Count Dooku.
Hmm.
So in that moment, instead of folding to the dark side and killing Count Dooku like Anakin did, she threw away the lightsaber and she chose to suppress her hate and to just kind of forget about it. And that was the lesson that Anakin was trying to teach her, because eventually she's like, I choose to live. And then he takes a step back, he kind of collects himself, and he turns back into Anakin Skywalker, showing you that this force premonition is Anakin Skywalker full and full. He is the light side, he is the dark side, he is the whole story of Anakin into one force premonition. And then he just smirks and he's like, there's hope for you yet. And then he disappears. And then obviously she's transported out back into the world between worlds, into the ocean, and then she's collected and saved. And obviously we talked about that the rest is history. But to not discourage the conversation, again, that's what the whole lesson was about. The whole lesson was about her not only accepting that what Anakin became was not her fault, but to also accept the fact that she comes from a lineage of just eccentric masters and Jedi, and that just like her master, she has these dark side tendencies, she has these impulses, but unlike him, she could choose a better path, and that's what
Hmm.
she does in the end. And again, in that way, it finally lets her accept that, you know what, I'm just like Anakin, but you know what, I'm better, or I'm me. It's like I might have some of his personality, I might have some of his traits, but I'm Ahsoka, like that's who I am. And she chose to live, and she chose to accept her past, her present, and her future, and she becomes Ahsoka the White, because of it, because she's finally at peace with herself. All her inner demons have been squashed, and she could do nothing but look forward now. And I mean, again, we could see a drastic personality change from when we first see her in the show to when she adorns those white robes. I mean, this is the Ahsoka that we saw in Rebels. This is the Ahsoka that we saw in the Clone Wars. This is who we needed the whole time. But now that I know that Dave Filoni had this wonderful master plan of having this character development, it's one of the best character developments to go down in Star Wars history. So, I mean, again, the phenomenal episode. I mean, solid, just 10 out of 10. I mean, if you can give it anything larger, give it like a trillion out of 10. I mean, this was absolute gold. This is perfection. This is the peak of Star Wars at the current time as we know it. We're not going to get anything better than this. Even when the new movies come out, even when other shows come out, we are never going to get anything more than this moment, than this episode right here. And I mean, that's really all you gotta say about it. I mean, it was perfect. I mean, it was the Clone Wars. It was the callback to Rebels. It was like just this beautiful melting pot of just everything. It had everything for everybody. It brought back Hayden Christensen. It brought back the Clone Wars. Captain Rex looked phenomenal. I mean, everybody was so happy that he finally got his live action appearance after so long. Because, I mean, there's a chance that he could possibly come back because again he was alive during Return of the Jedi. So if this happened 7 years after, he might still be kicking. We don't know how fast his aging process is. He might still be kicking. We might see a older Tamora Morrison, which would be super freaking cool to get a live action Clone Wars Rex and a live action Rebels Rex. I mean, that would just be so freaking cool. And this episode just wants me wanting more, and I just cannot wait to see how this series ends, to be honest.
I mean, the fact that Filoni fully flushed out Ahsoka's character in maybe a span of what 55 minutes in this one episode alone is nothing short of amazing. Like you said, it's I was pleased with Ahsoka before this, but this total transformation that we saw that did not feel rushed whatsoever and went through everything that she needed to went through. I mean, sorry, everything she went through that she needed to go through just in this world between worlds bit. I mean, perfection. I mean, from that, I mean, we even saw obviously a live action young version of Ahsoka, and they pulled it off beautifully. I mean, everything we possibly could have had, and just Hayden Christensen was a star in this episode. I mean, excuse me, he really showed off everything he had, and he gave everything he had towards this episode. And I truly do hope we see more of him. I really hope they make a Lego set of like their duel, or just, I mean, freaking, you have the opportunity to now just make another random Clone Wars set with young Ahsoka
Yeah.
and Hayden Christensen in it. Like, just please do it. But right after that happens, the transformation that she has, and just, I don't know how to put it, but it's her mindset and her demeanor is just like, kind of like my brother said earlier, where Hugh Wang asks, like, do you know where you're going? She's like, no, just let it happen. Just kind of like how I said about Balin in the last episode, where he's very collected in the way that he is, in certain points. And right now we're seeing Ahsoka just, I got it, it's I know that it'll take me to where I need to be.
Mhm.
I have, it's just that, and her look is beautiful. Like the white robe Ahsoka, it's perfect. It really is perfection. And I think her character is going to go so far, and it will never cease to amaze me how, because I was just watching a clip of literally the introduction of Ahsoka to Anakin and Obi-Wan today, like from the Clone Wars. It is nothing short of amazing how far the character of Ahsoka has come, to the
Yeah.
point where her live action show, will probably be one of the best pieces of Star Wars fiction. Again, like, I'm not trying to hate or dog on the sequels. This episode alone was better than the whole sequels. I like
Yeah.
the whole sequel trilogy. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but it was like, not giving hate to the actors or actresses or anything like that. But this just shows that you give somebody that knows writing, that knows Star Wars, that cares about the fact, and you don't freaking rush them, maybe you got a good damn project. And this was, again, I think on IMDb was rated like a 9.8. I mean, how it's not a 10.10, I don't think anything will ever be a 10.10. It's already the highest rated episode of Ahsoka. I'm pretty sure it's one of the highest rated episodes of any show of all time, and I'm sure it will stay that way because this will just age better with time. And I hope to see more flashbacks like this, but I'm not pushing any buttons or anything. This was perfect. This is what we needed. This is the height of the season. And I think honestly they're just gonna go on from here. I mean, expectations are so freaking high right now that I think they'll know how to top it. I mean, the fact that they pulled this off, I have no doubt in my mind that they will just keep going up.
Yeah.
Maybe
No, I
not to
agree.
the extent of being the beauty of Hayden Christian and Ahsoka together, but we will still see just some sort of beauty in the way of whatever the hell Filoni's got cooked up in his
Yeah.
body.
I mean, again, obviously, nothing is gonna. I mean, again, these last three episodes could be great, and you can keep that trend going in a positive direction. But unfortunately, nothing will top how good this episode was.
Oh yeah.
Again, episode 6 can come out next week. It could be an amazing episode, but it will still not have the same hype around it that this episode did. And you know what? I mean, that's not a bad thing. You know what? I mean, if this is the only live action Clone Wars we ever get, you know what? I'm okay with it. I mean,
Mhm.
it was just enough where it's like at least I got to see it. So it was like if they want to dive into maybe a movie, if they want to dive maybe into a live action series, if they want to do something with Hayden Christensen in the future, of course I would love that. But at the end of the day, If this is the last time we see Hayden Christensen as Anakin or Darth Vader, if this is the last time we ever see anything with the Clone Wars, in live action or just anything Clone Wars related, then you know what? I think it went out on the highest note possible. And I mean, it was just perfect. And, again, I think the rest of the show is just nothing but uphill. I mean, we still haven't even have Thrawn revealed yet. So, I mean, obviously that reveal is just going to blow people out of the water. Um, Again, we don't really know what's in these next 3 episodes, so we got a lot to look forward to. And I'm just super excited, and I just cannot wait to continue to talk about the show and just keep coming back every week and just talking about it because I mean it has just been an absolute blast and it's just been so good and just so enjoyable to talk about. So I mean, yeah, I mean this pretty much brings us to the end of our episode, guys. I mean, we pretty much talked about everything else. Like I said, solid 10 out of 10 Suns from both of us. I mean, this was an absolute masterpiece. Really nothing wrong. The biggest thing to take away from this episode is Ahsoka Tano's character development from, Ahsoka the Gray to Ahsoka the White. And just her journey of reconciling with the past and, focusing on the present to prepare for a better future. And that was the whole point of Anakin's lesson and Anakin's final lesson to appreciate her character development, appreciate Hayden Christensen coming back as Anakin Skywalker, teaching his Padawan one final lesson, seeing both sides of the coin, seeing him as Anakin, seeing him as Darth Vader. And I mean, again, just absolute 10 out of 10. This was perfect. I don't really know how much more I could say about it without just saying the same things over and over again, but you guys get the gist. I mean, this was an absolute masterpiece. This is probably the best Star Wars that we're going to get for a while. So just savor it and, just keep our fingers crossed that, the direction and the future of Star Wars is looking a little bit brighter if we know that Dave Filoni is tied to some projects. So with that being said, I mean, this is going to close out our wonderful review and breakdown of episode 5, The Shadow Warrior of the Ahsoka Show. So, tune in next week, obviously, when we're going to be breaking down episode 6. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the big throne reveal. Maybe it won't, but I guess you guys will have to tune in and you'll have to find out. So, before we get into our, goodbye spiels and, wishing everybody a farewell and adieu, you could find us on social media at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, now known as X, at Two Sons Podcast. That is with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. We are also on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube under Jabba's Lounge, and it's just spelled Jabba's Lounge. There's nothing fancy about it. I mean, you'll be able to find it. It's okay. So just like how these podcasts come out, in a audio version, they come out in a video version. So, you want to watch us on YouTube, watch us on YouTube. You want to listen to us on Spotify, listen to us on Spotify. Whatever your viewing pleasure, we just always appreciate all the love and support. These Ahsoka episodes have done really well. So it's nice to see you guys are interested and you're intrigued in these episodes, and they're getting about the same amount of viewerage, the same amount of love. So, we just really appreciate all the love and support on that end. Whether it comes from the YouTube end or it comes from the Spotify or just, podcasting platform end. We just appreciate all the love and support that you constantly give us. And we cannot do this podcast without you guys. So, before I say my final last words, I hope everybody has a great day. Whether you listen to this in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, please be safe. Don't do anything stupid. Make sure you stay hydrated because that's important. May the force be with you all. And I will now give it to my brother to wrap up this wonderful episode. So, Joey, the floor is yours.
Already, like my brother said, there is nothing else that either of us can say about this episode because I think we've used every word in the Urban Dictionary to describe this episode. Sheer perfection, sheer beauty, sheer amazingness. 10 million out of 10 million suns, for sure. Once again, like my brother said, you can find us on several social media platforms and viewing pleasure platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Did I say Instagram? I don't know. My brother already covered it. You know the spiel. Half Two Sons podcast, Sons with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers, and the other half is Jabba's Lounge. Whether you like the video versions or the audio versions, you can experience both one way or the other, or you can experience both of them one after the other if you're into that stuff. Let us know definitely what you prefer. Once again, our Ahsoka episodes have been doing really well. Our first episode on episode 1 through 3 of Ahsoka is coming into our top 10 highest episodes of all time. So shout out to you guys for tuning in and listening, and I hope to see the same viewership on this episode, because again, I think this was one of the most funnest episodes we could have talked about, and definitely going to be one of the best in my books. I absolutely enjoyed the hell out of it, and hopefully you guys are looking forward to the next couple of episodes we put out, because they'll all be about Ahsoka. And then, like my brother said, maybe for the last episode we could definitely do a watch party, and that'll be our little podcast. But we'll see what we can do. If not, it'll still be a banger of an episode, I'm sure. But once again, guys, thank you for all your love and support. Thank you for either joining us for the first time or coming out to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. I'm sorry about the day delay, but other than that, we're still going to get it out for you guys. We love doing this every week, and we hope to keep on doing it more and more each time. So once again, thank you guys. Have a great evening, great afternoon, great night. Just have a great whatever you're doing. Please don't do anything stupid. Make sure you stay hydrated. Make sure you stay warm, because the fall season is upon us. If you're anywhere in New York or just those places, if not, you don't have to worry about it, I guess. Grab yourself some pumpkin spice. Grab yourself some coffee. Grab yourself whatever you need to stay hydrated and sustained, and blah 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 blah. But other than that, like my brother said, it's another Star Wars episode, so we will leave it out on a "May the Force be with you," and we hope you have a great evening, great night, great day. Goodbye.
Have a good one, guys.